not only lived and existed in captivity, but they thrived. They actually were promoted to positions of high authority in King Nebuchadnezzar's court. And we also saw how even during these difficult times, and these folks really faced some terrible things. We know that uh, they faced death at times. And that even in the most difficult of situations, they never lost their faith. They never bowed down to King Nebuchadnezzar, never bowed down, never worshiped the idols that he worshiped. And last week, we saw how God dealt with King Nebuchadnezzar. We saw how the king went insane and how he was driven into the fields to live like a wild animal for a period of time. And after a certain time, the king regained his senses, and it says that he praised and glorified God. In today's lesson, the handwriting on the wall focuses on Belshazzar, King Nebuchadnezzar's son, who has become king of Babylon. The scripture today is found in Daniel 5, 1 through 31. And it reads like this: Belshazzar the king held a great feast for 1,000 of his nobles. And he gave orders to bring the gold and silver vessels which Nebuchadnezzar his father had taken out of the temple which was in Jerusalem, so that the king and his nobles, his wives, and his concubines might drink from them. And they drank the wine, and they praised the gods of gold and silver, of bronze, iron, wood, and stone. We see in this passage of Scripture where Belshazzar throws a great feast, and he invites 1,000 people to come and celebrate with him. And we also see where they bring out the sacred vessels that were looted from the temple years ago, and how all the people at the feast drank from these vessels, and how they desecrated those vessels by doing so. Scripture continues. Suddenly, the fingers of a man's hand emerged and began writing. The king's face grew pale. His hip joints went slack, and his knees began knocking together. And the king called in the conjurers, the Chaldeans, and the diviners. And he said to the wise men of Babylon, any man who can read this inscription and explain its interpretation shall be clothed with purple and have a necklace of gold around his neck and have authority as third ruler in the kingdom. And I want you to listen to this. And it says, but they could not read the inscription or make known the interpretation. The hand of God appears suddenly out of nowhere during this great, I would say, drunken orgy that's occurring. And this hand appears, and it starts writing on the wall. And Belshazzar is so afraid, it says he's shaking, his knees are knocking together. Even in his drunken state, he realizes that this is just not usual. This is not something that he has ever dealt with before. And so what does he do? He calls all the wise men together